So as you guys know, Kemar's mom immigrated to the U.S. a few months ago, and many of you have asked about his younger brother and why did he not immigrate with his mom when she came up. So today I'm going to explain that and talk a little bit about the IR5 visa category. And as we always say, we're not wasting no time. I'm going to get right to the video.
The Bonnicks on the rise. The Bonnicks stay up on your TV. Turn up the volume and put it in a 3D. Yeah. Gather round, can you see me? Come make we have a good time and be free. Sing it again. The Bonnicks stay up on your TV. Turn up the volume and put it in a 3D. Gather round, can you see me? Come make we have a good time and be free. Me talk about everything where you go on, from personal life to politician. Full enjoyment, that we plan. We have to talk about food as a Jamaican. Yeah. The Bonnicks on the rise. The Bonnicks stay up on your TV. Turn up the volume and put it in a 3D. Gather round, can you see me? But make we have a good time and be free.
Hey family, welcome back to the channel. And before I get started, just so you guys know, Kemar is here. So
hey family, so you know me there, just go and relax. So basically my wife know more about this topic, this immigration topic, so she going to basically explain and tell you guys about it.
Yep. All right. So I'm just going to start off with, first, as you guys know, there are a lot of visa categories for which you can enter the United States. So it basically comes down to like non-immigrant versus immigrant visa. So you have the non-immigrant visas, which the more popular ones are like the B1, B2. B1 is basically like a business visa, and the B2 is like a tourist visa. So we typically call that like a tourist or a visitor's visa. But the B1 is a business visa, and if you're also going to be doing some tourist stuff, then you could get the B1, B2, kind of like a combo. So you also have like the J1, J2 visa. The J1 is like an exchange program, so you see a lot of college kids come up on that one, like in the summertime. You also have like teachers, you have physicians, people who come and do like au pair type work, which is like a nanny. And on certain J1 visas, you also have the J2, which will be the dependent category. So on certain J1s, then you can also bring your dependent, which will be the J2. You also have like the F1 student visa. So there's a lot of different visa categories, but those are like the more popular ones that we know for the non-immigrant, the B1, B2, J1, J2, and the F1 student. Then on the flip side of that, you have immigrant visas, which is mainly what we're going to talk about, since that's the visa category for which Kemar immigrated to the U.S. and then following him, his mom immigrated to the U.S. So I'm going to try to do my best to explain it. This is not a how-to video on how to file for anyone. This is not a breakdown of all of the visa categories, because there are a lot of visa categories. And even myself, I don't know all of them, but I have learned a lot just filing for Kemar and kind of going through the process and doing a little bit of research and answering questions that a lot of people have come to me and asked me about. And so I just kind of learned a lot in doing a little bit of research. So I really just kind of want to break down the IR5 category, which is how his mother came here. But before we get to that, let's just start out with immigrant visas for the family. So when you're talking about like immigrant visas, you have the K1, that will be what we would call the fiance visa. You also have the IR1, CR1, which is if you are filing for a spouse. So the IR1 is basically a immediate relative visa, and the CR1 is a conditional resident visa. So conditional resident is what I filed for when Kemar first immigrated to the United States, because it's conditional. That means that you have a conditional green card once you come into the States and you receive your green card, that green card is typically going to be for 2 years. So if you have been married for less than 2 years, then you're going to get a CR1 visa. You're going to get a conditional resident visa. If you have been married for more than 2 years, then you're going to get the IR1 visa, which is an immediate relative visa. That means that once you enter into the United States, you're going to automatically get a 10-year green card. Now, one thing I do want to point out about the IR1 spouse visa, because I know there's a lot of people who follow us who are married to, someone in Jamaica. So maybe you're a U.S. citizen or, whatnot, and you're married to someone from Jamaica or even, from any other country. And as we all know, COVID really slowed things down. It shut the embassies down for a period of time. And then even when they opened back up, they were behind. So in processing all of those cases, because they were still taking applications, but they weren't processing any interviews or visas. And so a lot of people who filed during that COVID pandemic time, or even if you started the process before then and then kind of got caught up in the middle of COVID, you've been married for over 2 years now. So those people who are coming through the U.S. now under the spouse category are automatically getting that 10-year green card. So, and the reason why I say that's important, because you have a lot of people who, because everything was kind of shut down, people didn't travel as much. People weren't, really kind of like getting to know each other, seeing each other, or whatever the case may be. And then when you come together, it's kind of difficult. It's like, boom, you're kind of starting from scratch. And I had a friend who, even kind of went through the process during COVID, and her spouse finally came up last year and they didn't work out. But when you file for a visa, you're basically filing to sponsor somebody to come to the U.S. You got to make a certain amount of money, like above the poverty threshold, but you're also signing what is called an affidavit of support, and that means that you are responsible for that person. So even if that person comes over here, they now have a 10-year green card, you're on the hook for that person for roughly around 10 years. And I mentioned this in another video, so I'm not really going to get into that, but I just kind of wanted to point that out because I do know that we have a lot of followers who watch us who are married to somebody from Jamaica or another country, or, whatever the case may be. And just know that, you want to make sure that you're going to mesh when you come together, and you really don't know that until they get here. But on the flip side of that is, if you have filed for your spouse to come to the U.S. and maybe it's on the tail end of COVID, and so you might be coming up on your 2 years, your 2-year anniversary, it would be better to wait until your 2-year anniversary before you enter the U.S., before the beneficiary enters the U.S. Because when you file for the conditional resident visa, that means you've been married less than 2 years, you still got to file to remove conditions off of that green card. So that's more money, more time, more evidence. So if your beneficiary, your spouse is still in another country, and you're coming up on your 2-year anniversary, maybe it's coming up in a few days, a month, 2 months, 3 months. I would probably even go as far as to say 6 months. I would probably wait until that 2-year anniversary before they enter the U.S. So that way you don't have to remove conditions, and they will automatically get a 10-year green card when they come into the States. Okay, so now that I've gotten that out of the way, let me just kind of reel it back in and get back to the family-based visas. So specifically, I'm going to be talking about the IR5 visa category, because that is the category by which Kemar's mom was able to come into the United States and immigrate to the U.S. So whether you're a U.S. citizen or you're a green card holder, you can file for an immediate relative or a family-based visa. So as a green card holder, you can file for your spouse. You can also file for your children. So I should probably specify and say unmarried children. As a U.S. citizen, you can file for pretty much anyone. You can file for a spouse, you can file for a parent, you can file for a child, and you can file for your siblings. Now, with that, as a U.S. citizen, the process is always going to be much faster. So that's one benefit to becoming a U.S. citizen, because you have a lot of people who don't even want to be a citizen. They maybe just want their green card. They just want to come to the U.S. and just permanently have a green card, and that's their right to do so. But there are more benefits when you are a U.S. citizen, and also if you plan to file for other family members, the process is always going to be faster as a U.S. citizen. And then there's other benefits as well, such as, if somebody is already in the States, depending on the relationship to that person. So for example, if it's a parent or a spouse, you can adjust their status from within the States. But I do want to point out that it is illegal to enter the United States on a non-immigrant visa with the intent to immigrate. So it's not illegal for them to adjust the status, but it is illegal to enter the United States on a non-immigrant visa with the intent to immigrate. And so you might be thinking, well, how will they know I have the intent? As you're coming through customs, they can go through your phone, they can go through your luggage, they can do a little bit of research on you, and so easily find that information out, if you have the intent to enter the United States and immigrate. So I just want to point that out, because we ain't getting nobody over here to do no funky, shady stuff that's not legal. So did want to point that out. But as a U.S. citizen, you can file for your parent. So Kemar is a U.S. citizen, and Kemar can file for his parent, and he can also file for his siblings. So as you guys know, Kemar has 2 siblings. He has a sister, and she is well over 21. And then he has a younger brother who is still a minor. He's going to be starting high school this next school year. And so many of you have asked, why did Kemar's younger brother not come up with his mom? Because he's a minor. He should have been able to immigrate with her. And the reason that he did not, just in short, the short answer is he couldn't, because he would be considered what they call is a derivative. And a derivative is pretty much a byproduct. So Kemar's relationship to his brother is a byproduct. So he's related to Kemar through Kemar's mom, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So basically, he's a derivative, and he's not allowed on the IR5 visa category. That category does not allow for derivatives to enter the United States with the intending immigrant. So that's the short answer. So I do want to kind of go a little bit further and kind of explain that Kemar is a citizen. So Kemar can file for his mom. He can also file for his siblings. However, siblings are not considered immediate relatives. So that would pretty much fall under a family-based visa category, and that can take years. In some cases, almost 20 years, because there is a waiting list for family-based visas, right? So I also want to say that Kemar's mom, when she entered the United States, she automatically got a 10-year green card, and she can file for her other children as soon as she sets foot into the States. So if you are a green card holder, as soon as you set foot into the States, you can file for your other children. The catch is going to be having someone to sponsor that person, because of course, if you're just now coming up, you maybe have to get a job. You got to make a certain amount of money to be able to sponsor somebody. So you're definitely almost always going to need a co-sponsor if you choose to go that route. So just want to put that out there. But Kemar is a U.S. citizen, and a U.S. citizen can only petition for direct beneficiaries. So in short, that's the reason why Kemar's younger brother was not able to immigrate with his mom. And I just kind of want to point out that, a couple of you have said that, when you're a parent, like maybe your mom or your dad filed for your siblings, that they were able to bring their children. Your siblings were able to bring their children to the U.S. when their parent filed for them. So I just kind of want to distinguish that there's a difference in that visa category. So a parent filing for a child is different from a U.S. citizen child filing for a parent. A U.S. citizen can only file for a direct beneficiary. However, if you are a parent filing for your children, then their children can come as well. So basically, as a green card holder, Kemar's mom can now file for her other 2 children. So Kemar's brother is underage, he's under 21, so she can file for him. Kemar's sister, on the other hand, is well over 21. And so as long as she remains unmarried, her process would be a little bit longer than Kemar's brother because she's over 21. But her process is going to be longer. But if she were to marry, then that's going to disqualify her, so to speak. So green card holder can file for an unmarried child over 21. And let's just say Kemar's sister hypothetically got married during the process. She would no longer be eligible for that visa. As I said, she would be disqualified, and that visa would become null or void, or if they continue through the process, it would just simply be denied. However, as I said, U.S. citizens do have different rights, and so a U.S. citizen can file for their married child over 21. So if Kemar's mom filed for Kemar's sister and she got married during the process, she wouldn't be eligible for the visa. But once Kemar's mom becomes a citizen, she could then file for her married child over 21. But the previous process would not transfer. That one would be null and void, and she would have to refile. So that's just something to think about if you do have children that are over 21, maybe in a long-term relationship or a serious relationship and thinking about marriage. That is something to think about, and especially if you've already filed for them, that's going to pretty much be money wasted because you're going to have to start the process all over again if you plan to file for them once you become a citizen. And then one other thing that I did want to quickly touch on, since we are discussing the IR5 visa category, which is a U.S. citizen child filing for a parent. Just keep in mind that anytime you're going through the immigration process and petitioning for someone to immigrate to the U.S., you have to establish the relationship. So if you're filing for a spouse, you submit your marriage certificate. If you're filing for a parent, a child, or a sibling, then you would submit the birth certificate. But if you're filing for a father, because some of you are filing for your father as well, or either or, mother or father, filing for a father is just a little bit different. The requirement is a little bit different. So if you're filing for your mother, you only have to submit the birth certificate establishing the relationship and the application. And then if you are filing for a father, then you have to also establish that there was a relationship before the age of 21. So you have to show that there was some type of emotional or financial relationship before you turn 21. So, and I just want to kind of tell you guys a little story, because sometimes when you go to these embassies, you have people who are like foreigners who work at the embassy, but you also have like people who are from that country that work there, and people are bad mind. People don't want to see you prosper or get ahead or anything like that. And I just wanted to kind of share like a little story about Kemar's mom when she was going through the process, and the consular officer requested additional evidence. She said she needed evidence to show that there was a established relationship between Kemar and his mom. So she requested like photos from when Kemar was a child, like photos of them together, chat logs, and anything else that Kemar's mom could show that there was some type of relationship. So that kind of irritated me, because I already knew that the only evidence required was the birth certificate. And so even though Kemar filed for his mom, I pretty much did the paperwork, but he is the one that sponsored her. But I sent a letter to the embassy. I emailed them a letter, and I did say it was from me, the daughter-in-law. I just basically stated that the request for additional evidence was not warranted. And I also sent a screenshot of the instructions for the I-130 application, basically saying that for a mother, you only need to submit the birth certificate, and that information was submitted during the process. And so the request was not warranted, and it's just basically a tactic to delay issuing a visa to somebody who's eligible under this category. And I request that the visa be issued immediately. And so we did send in the other evidence that they requested, photos and chat logs from WhatsApp, but I emailed the letter. The evidence has to go through the courier service, which can take a day or two. I emailed the letter, and 2 days later, the visa was issued, and it said that it was issued on the same day that they received the evidence from the courier service, but we know that they don't review that evidence the same day. They get it, they put it in a file, put it in order of receipt, so it can take a few days or a few weeks for them to review evidence. And I'm just sharing that story so that you all know your rights when you're going through this process, because sometimes, you know, these embassies, these consular officers like to play games, and you know, if you get like a delay requesting additional evidence, and you might be freaking out like, oh my God, I don't have this evidence, or now I gotta, you know, try to take the time to get this stuff together and submit it. And you know, you just need to know your rights, that when you're filing for a mother, the only requirement is the birth certificate. Filing for a father, you're gonna need to establish emotional and or financial responsibility before the age of 21. So let me just kind of say it again, you know, in case it was kind of confusing. So Kemar has two siblings. He has a sister who is well over 21, and he has a brother who is under the age of 21. So Kemar's mom can file for both of them because the brother is underage. He's under 21. She can file for him, and the normal processing time is about 2 years for a green card holder to petition for an immediate relative. That process in the past has been about 2 years, but as we know, COVID slowed everything down. And so I don't even know if they're back to normal processing times now, but that process typically takes about 2 years. And as I said, Kemar's sister is well over 21. So although Kemar's mom can file for her, her process is still going to be longer because she's over 21. She's not considered an immediate relative. She would be like a family-based visa, and they only allow a certain number of those each year, and there is a waiting list. So I want to also clarify that Kemar can file for his brother and sister, but for a U.S. citizen to file for a sibling, again, that process is about 20 years. And that's not exaggerating. It may not be that long, it could be longer, but I believe the wait time for certain countries right now is about 20 years. So it might take 10 years, might take 15 years, could take longer. But so it would just make more sense for Kemar to file for his mom. His mom would come up, and normally the processing time for a U.S. citizen to file for a parent is about a year. So as I said, the process is a little bit quicker if you are a U.S. citizen. So Kemar can file for his mom, and then when she comes into the country, she can file for her other children. So I just kind of wanted to explain that process, because I know like this immigration process is very tedious. It's a lot of information. A lot of people don't understand it. And you really do have to do like your research to understand it, because a lot of people, you know, kind of just waste a lot of money on the fees, filing paperwork, and don't really understand the process. They're submitting the wrong forms or whatever the case may be. And trust me, Customs and Immigration is not going to return any of your money, but they will return that form and send you a letter and say, this is not the right form, or this form is too soon, or whatever the case is, but they're not going to give you your money back. So I did kind of want to just explain that process. So just to wrap it up and kind of summarize it again, Kemar's brother was not able to immigrate with Kemar's mom because he would be considered a derivative, and derivatives are not allowed on the IR5 visa category. The IR5 visa category is the category for a U.S. citizen child over 21. They can file for their parent, and then when that parent enters the U.S., they can file for any other children that they might have. So I hope that I made that clear and it wasn't, you know, kind of confusing for you guys. And if you have any questions, of course, you can drop those in the comments and I will do my best to kind of just reply and respond to your questions and your comments. So I hope this video was kind of informative. Like I said, it wasn't a how-to file for anyone or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to explain the process a little bit in detail instead of just saying like, oh, he couldn't come with her. I wanted to kind of explain why. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video. Of course, drop a comment, share the Bonnicks content, and hit that subscribe button. And we will see you next time.